So just another couple of things within the UV basics. Okay, so we're continuing on with our glass. And maybe one of the things you want to do is be able to, just notice I still have a seam here. Let me just grab this. Let's grab this one to this one, double click. And let's do a shift and move and sew edges on that. So you may want to straighten out some of these UV shells. So there's a couple of ways that we can approach this. If I grab this UV island, one of the first ways we've got is within the unfold menu. So we actually have down here this straighten shell. So I can click on that and it may attempt to straighten the shell out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So that's one way you can try. Another way, which is often a better way of fixing problems like this, is to actually go in and grab, let's say we grab a couple of edges down here. So edges that we want to sort of straighten out the UV island against. And then if I just go down to the Arrange and Layout menu, just down here, and we can use this Orient to Edges. So if I click on that with these edges selected, it tries to flatten that out against those edges. If I still wanted this rotated round, so this is on its side right now, we could then go in and I could just use my rotate up here. So if I just set this to, say, 45, just rotate that round, or I could have stuck it to 90. Let's do a similar thing with this. Let's grab a couple of edges down here. Let's orient to edge. And that tries to straighten that out a little bit. Okay. So that's just one way of organizing your UV layout. Another thing that we need to consider is the distribution of our checkerboard over the mesh, so our UV layout. So this is to do with our Texel density. So if I click the checkerboard on right now, so I'm just looking at the checkerboards over this, and I can see that actually within inside this, the UVs are a little smaller than on the outside. So they're quite even sizes, but let's just break this even more. Let's just grab this down here and let's just scale this to resize this. So there we can see we're getting a lot less texel density on the base of this glass than we are the rest of it. And most of the time what we want to do is have even distribution of these UVs over this model. So we're keeping the same texel density over the entire thing. So a couple of ways to do, well, two real ways to do that. We can just scale these. So I can scale these through until this is pretty much matching. So I'm just doing this by eye. But obviously that's not the best way to do this. And if you've got a lot of different things in your scene, a lot of different UV shells, that can take a while. So a better way to do this is to actually be able to get the texel density of our mesh and basically take that from one part of the mesh or one UV shell and apply that to other UV shells within our UV layout. So that way that I do that is again within the transform menu. Down here we have this texel density, pixels per unit, and I have this get and this set here. So if I just take a section of this object, this mesh that I want to get the texel density from, so let's say we get this from this outside area, grab that, let's get, and that gives us a texel density. This is over a 512 map size currently. Let's double click on this one and let's set, and now they're the same texel density. If I double click on this one and again set, that now sets that so it's correct. I can just go through and match these out. So then I have an even texel density over the entire thing, over my entire mesh. Okay. Our final thing is to actually lay this out. So if you remember, we were talking about this in another UV basics, that way we need to bring all our UVs into this 0 to 1 space. So this section here, essentially. So again, now I have all these, I could grab these and I could start laying out these manually. And sometimes actually that's something you end up doing. So I don't want any overlapping on this. So I could try to get these as best I can. Let's grab this. Let's maybe bring this down here. We can flip these around these and rotate them, and then I can grab them all, and I can just go in with my scale tool, and I can scale these down and fit this into this area here as best as possible. I remember we're trying to make the most of this Texel, most out of this Texel density, so try to use up as much of this space as possible to get the best out of this, the UV map, to get the best resolution. But again, that could be time consuming. So another way to do this, let's just undo this, is to actually grab our UVs. Let's go down here, and we have this layout tool. So if I just click on this layout tool, just initially, go through, and it will pack these in, and that's the technical term for what this is doing. It's packing the UVs into this area here, and actually you can see it's done a better job than me on this. It's found this area out. There are third-party packages that do this absolutely brilliantly, but again, Maya's getting better and better at this. There are circumstances where you may want to go in and just adjust these manually as well, but as a quick thing, it does quite a good job of this. Another thing that we can do with this as well, so I was talking about Texel Density. If I go in, let's just change a couple of these up. Let's just bring this down. So just changing a couple of these things. Okay, so I've altered my Texel density on this. So if I grab these, and I'm going to go into the layout options, so shift click on the layout tool. So a couple of things we can do in the shell pre-transform settings here. So if I go in, what I want to do is I want to actually bring out the 3D ratios. So if I go in and I preserve the 3D ratios, what that's going to do, or try to do, is actually match out the Texel density of these things. I'm going to switch off the, let's actually switch that back on. Switch off this shell pre-rotation for a second. Let's just apply this. So that has gone through, and it's actually relayed out these UVs and set those back into the correct Texel density there. So we don't have to do that just manually. We can let the layout do that as well. Another useful thing sometimes is to actually allow the layout to rotate some of the shells. That can sometimes give you a better pack of your UVs. So again, if I shift click on the layout, under this shell pre-rotation, I can actually allow that to rotate these on the horizontal or vertical. And that can do a better job of laying out the UVs. So again, let's just grab these. It probably won't do much of a different job on this, to be honest. But we can do that, and sometimes that will create a better pack. Okay, so just a couple of things you can do within there. We can also set some shell padding and tile padding. So the shell padding is just the space between each of the individual shells. The tile padding is the space around this area here. So again, if we want to make the best out of that, let's just set this to 1 and 1. And it's just bringing these out. So there isn't as much space between each of these shells now. And again, it depends what you're doing with this. If I was doing normal map baking, then I'd want some more spacing between these UV islands and the UV tiles. And again, we could set that there. So I usually have something like a shell padding of 10, tile padding of around 10 as well, just to give me a little bit of space on there. But just know that you can do that. If you're not worrying about baking normal maps and you're just baking these out to put textures on, then by all means we can take those down. Okay. So that's the UV layout.